Good evening and welcome on this sunset safari. My name is Brent. I'm going to be your guide. I've got Andrew, aka the Art Fark, on camera, back from leave. We have Scott and Viam, aka the Wildebeest, on the other vehicle, and we have Tara and Nikki in final control. Welcome. As you can see, we've come and caught up again with the Nkuhuma pride that we saw on the sunrise safari. They have moved probably about 150 meters from where we left them this morning. But they are still fast asleep. So we'll spend a little bit of time here before moving on to see what else we can find, and definitely come back later in the drive. So believe it or not, you are looking at lions live at the exact same time we are. Also, we're interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're seeing and anything you might be wondering about the African bush. And you can do that by emailing us questions at WildEarthTV, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So we're going to move around now, see if we can get a better look of the rest of the pride, who are lying a little bit behind Junior, the young male whose face we started on. But what a way to start the sunset safari with a nice pride of lions. Have a look forward here. I think there's a few more behind this bush. I'm going to see if I can plan the best spot to give you guys the best view. As you can see, those are quite lazy kitties. So just an update for people who might have missed what's been happening over the last few days, or if you're a new viewer. We've been now following the Nkuhuma pride for about 6 drives. We've spent time with them. I think with Scott, probably 7 or 8 drives. And they haven't made a kill for quite a while, so they are quite hungry. And we've watched them attempt to catch buffalo 3 times, and each time they have failed. And so hopefully, this evening might be looking a little bit better. Now here's a really good example to say if we were tracking on foot looking for lions. One of the things you look for in the grass while you're walking is that shock of white from that underbelly. And you can see, because when lions are resting, they will often lie like that. They do that for a bit of coolness, and you can see there how white their underbelly is compared to the rest of the body. And that's one of the things you look for. Also, you look for that little ear flick that we see occasionally from all the biting flies, and that black behind the ears that sticks out quite incredibly in the bush. And I don't think this is possibly the best angle to view them from, so we'll pop around to the other side, see if we can get a better look. So lots of welcome backs for the Art Fark. He nods a silent thank you from behind me. See, I don't let my cameramen speak too much. If they do, I hit them with a stick. But Art Fark really appreciates all the welcomes back. Hello, ladies. And it's amazing how little notice the animals take of us in the vehicles. Obviously, on foot would be a very different story. If we were to walk into lions on foot, more than likely at this time of the day, they would get up and run away from us, trying to avoid the dominant diurnal predator, which is man. And historically, men have been great scavengers from lions during the day. during the heat of the day, if the lions want to kill, a group of humans charging in and shouting and screaming would literally give them the fright of their lives, and they would run off, giving those people a chance to steal the meat, cut off the prime bits of steak, and have a nice dinner thanks to the lions' efforts. So it's about 22 degrees Celsius, which is 72 Fahrenheit. So been quite a cool day. So that's why they're not so concentrated in the shade and they're actually lying out in the sun a little bit. We have a question from Daniel, who's a new viewer. Welcome on this Sunset Safari, Daniel. It's really great to have you with us. Daniel's question is, what is the best sighting I've had in the bush? I'm going to tell you about my best lion sighting since we are sitting next to a pride of lions. It happened in northern Botswana quite a long time ago. And we're watching a pride of lions, not dissimilar in size to the Nkuhumas, with a young male about the same age as Junior, maybe a little bit younger. And while we were sitting there waiting for them, like we are now, to get up and go hunting, an adult honey badger started walking down the road towards, probably about 50 meters from where the lions were sleeping. And along came the honey badger. And the honey badgers have this walk. They are the toughest guys in the bush, and no one's going to mess with them. Sorry, madam. Yes, even she's scared of honey badger. You just mentioned the word honey badger. And the young male lion, the lionesses basically did what she did there. She lifted her head and looked and went, no. Negative, I'm not going near that terrible little creature. There's all claws and teeth and has a very smelly anal gland. It can squirt at me and put their heads back down. The young male, on the other hand, with the exuberance of youth, bounded after this honey badger and actually caught it. But this honey badger made the most incredible snarling, growling noises, and they've got a very loose skin, and they are able to move quite a lot in the skin, and that's what makes them quite hard to bite. And they've also got a very tough skin. So eventually all that happens is this male lion put his paw flat down on the honey badger. Now the honey badger is sort of lying there like this, unable to move. And the male lion now realizes that he doesn't actually want to put his head anywhere near this creature. But if he lifts his foot, every time he slightly lifted his foot, the honey badger and tried to bite me, so he just pushed it down again. And eventually, he sat there for about half an hour with his foot down on this honey badger, and this honey badger in the sand, not being able to move. And then the lionesses got up, and when they start getting up, they start stretching and grooming and playing, and they started walking off down the road. And now you see this male lion is in a great confusion. He wants to go with the rest of the pride, but he doesn't want to let go of this honey badger. And he sat there for about 10 minutes till he couldn't see the rest of the pride. The rest of the pride disappeared around the corner, and you could almost see this male lion counting, sort of going, 1, 2, 3. And he pushed the honey badger literally into the sand and leapt off it and sprinted off down the road. And that honey badger ran after him, going for about 150 meters. Obviously, never fast enough to catch a lion, but that's probably my best lion sighting. Definitely the most amusing lion sighting I've ever had. Well, there's a little bit of stretching at the back there, not too much though. I think they probably, because they are hungry, they might get moving a little bit earlier than normal. But while we stay here with these very lazy kitties, we're going to cross across to Scott so he can say good afternoon, and we're going to sit here and hopefully something meanders into the lion pride. Otherwise, we will be keeping tabs on them for the Sunset Safari, But in the meantime, we'll pass you over to Scotty so he can say hello, and we'll be with you a little later.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board with myself, Scott Dyson, and on camera with me this afternoon, I'm teamed up with VM. Now, we have initially headed out in the hope that we could find some elephants that we saw a little bit earlier on between the drives, but they moved into a very thick area. So now we've continued in the hope that we may find some male leopard tracks that we were reported about, heading from Twin Dams towards Treehouse Dam. So we're going to make our way slowly into that area and see if we don't get lucky there. Failing that, we may head across to Arathusa a little bit later on to look for anything really, but also hopefully possibly find some sign of Sindile and Shadow, another 2 leopards. It's a mother and 12-month-old cub. So those are the initial plans for the afternoon, but they could very well change, as they often do on this unscripted live safari. Well, I'm told one of our new viewers from today, Daniel, has just asked Brent which his favorite animal sighting has been, and Brent told one of his lion sighting stories, so I guess I could also tell one about lions. Probably one of my most memorable lion sightings ever actually didn't involve any bloods or guts or carnage, and it was early on in my guiding career, back in 2008. We were here in the southern Sabi Sands, and there was a coalition of 5 male lions in their prime. They had come into the area about a year before I started working there, I think, and wreaked absolute havoc, killing dominant males, killing cubs, even killing a few lionesses who were trying to defend their cubs in the way. And thereafter, once everything calmed down and they became the dominant coalition, they were lying up one early morning. It was a cold winter's morning in a riverbed, and while I was training, all 6 of us, the trainees, headed out in the dark to go and sit with these lion, and simultaneously all 5 of them started calling, and they were only meters away from us, and the sound and the vibrations that run through your body when 5 male lions are calling just meters away really is something that you will never ever be able to forget. And to hear male lion vocalizing, or any lion really, as long as you're close by, is one thing that I could wish all of my guests get to see if they do come out on safari in Africa. If there was one thing I could choose to show them, it would be that. So that's certainly one of my favorite things to see, and that specific morning, having 5 big males was my most awesome sighting of lion that comes to mind this afternoon. Daniel, good to have you with us. It must be said though that we do spend a lot of time out here in order to eventually get lucky and see these incredible things. So it's not happening all the time, and you've got to keep tuned in to the safaris in order to increase your chances of seeing this action. Speaking of lions in action, Brent is in a very favorable position with the Nkuhuma Pride this afternoon, because they are continuing to look hungry, and it looks like they were unsuccessful in their hunting attempts last night. So we will certainly be switching backwards and forwards between the 2 vehicles, and hopefully it won't take too long for these lions to get up and start hunting. Failing that, something could hopefully stumble across them and they'll try and catch it. They are very opportunistic, and quite often you can leave lion in the morning fast asleep under a shady bush, and arrive in the afternoon and they're lying under that same shady bush, but there's a kill lying next to them and they're full bellied. And in the thick bush that they're lying in today, there's a chance that something could stumble upon them, and then that could trigger an attack. Interestingly enough, last night, that pride of lion that you've just seen with Brent were walking down this very road, and I'm trying to find a clear track to show you, but excuse me, but now that the clouds block the sunlight and there's flat light, it's going to be very difficult to show you any tracks in the sand. They were walking down here, and this was part of the journey we took this morning to find them. It must be said that VM was actually the first person to spot them this morning. I was busy looking down on the road for tracks, and then he spots a junior just off to the side of the vehicle, the young male. And if it wasn't for that brief glimpse of the young male, we would have really battled to find him this morning. Well, the sun's just come out again from behind that cloud, so let's see if we can't find your track quickly. It's difficult because quite a few vehicles have driven along this road, therefore erasing the tracks and leaving vehicle tracks in their place. So I don't think it's going to work out, but it certainly will on future occasions. And we're going to stop here and listen for a moment. This was the area where we were reported to have some male leopard tracks this morning. Brent didn't see them, neither myself. It was another guide. So we're just going to stop and listen, and hopefully hear some alarm calls from potentially monkeys or squirrels or even birds if they have seen the leopard or any other predators. Enjoy the lions, and we will see you all a bit later.
Welcome back, and as you can see, almost zero movement since you've been gone. So we will stay with these lions a little bit longer. We're just basically going to wait till another game drive vehicle comes in, then we'll meander off to see what else we can find, but definitely make our way towards them later in the drive again, and hopefully when they are up and mobile and on the trail of something good to eat. Comatose kitties. Hi, David. David is referring to what we were chatting about a little bit earlier with the white bellies of the lions. David saying they seem to reflect all spectrums of the color white, and that will possibly help reflect heat in our hot climate that we are. And what were my thoughts on that? David, that makes a lot of sense. I'd be lying if I said I was 100% sure that's exactly what it did. But as we know, light colors, like white, do reflect heat. And that's possibly why they do lie also with their legs open when they are very hot, to try to release a lot of that heat from their bodies. Thanks very much, Dave. That's a really, really great observation about those bellies. Normally I've just sort of thought, look for a belly when I'm on foot so I don't trip over a lion. But that's a really, really wonderful observation. And possibly there could be a bit more to that, so I will try to look into that for you, David. So the movement of these Nkuhumas has been quite interesting over the last couple of days. We found them on Djuma, then they went into Buffel's Hook, and then they came back onto Djuma and went all the way through Djuma into Arathusa, and then from Arathusa into a property called Hoffman's to the south and east of us, or south and west of us, and then this morning, or late last night, back into Djuma. So Deb in Connecticut was just wondering where we were with these lions at the moment, and we are on Djuma at the moment. We're in the sort of southeastern sector of Djuma, in probably the biggest area in Djuma with no roads. So it was quite a challenge to find them this morning, and thanks to Scotty having a brief visual of Junior, we were able to find the rest of the pride. And even though we have very flat cats, quite often the way we find lions is because we hear them roaring and calling to each other or to opposition lions. And Happy Cub would like to know, how far can a lion's call be heard? Probably with the human ear, I would probably say at the far distance, probably around 10 kilometers, and to a lion, probably further than that. But at 10 kilometers, we're going to be hearing it very, very faintly. It's going to be like, it'll be very, very faint. But to the lion, it probably heard quite a lot further than that. Generally, if you hear it calling very clearly and closely, they're probably within 5 kilometers of where you are. Oh, the sun has just decided to come out. Better find my hat. So, because we've been lucky enough to spend so many drives with the Nkuhuma Pride recently, Susan's from Tennessee has sort of noted that it seems like the Nkuhumas are not a very successful pride, and they don't seem to catch that much in comparison to the other prides in that area. Susan, I don't think that's particularly true. The Nkuhumas in general, when we find them, are often quite well fed, even though we might not see the kill. They probably sustain off quite a lot of small antelope, that there would be almost no sign of them have fed off them, because they need quite a large kill to fill those big bellies. But lions, on average, in the greater Kruger area, have a success rate on hunts of about 1 or 12 to 17%. So they're probably on about the right sort of amount at the moment. They've probably had 6 or 7 failed hunts. So the law of averages says the next couple, or one of the next 2 or 3 hunts, it has to sort of finally pay off for them. But I wouldn't say they were an unsuccessful pride at all. I mean, most of the animals are look in very good condition. They're healthy. And where there's the other prides, we don't spend as much time with the other prides. So all we do is get the sort of updates when something really fantastic happens, like they catch a buffalo or a giraffe or anything like that. So I think it's possibly they seem more unsuccessful because we spend so much time with them as opposed to the other prides, and we always see the updates on the Facebook pages and whatnot of the lions with kills and whatnot. So I think a lot of the time when the other prides are like this, we're just not hearing about it as much. So I wouldn't call the Nkuhumas an unsuccessful pride at all. Welcome back again, football expert. Thanks for another question. Football expert would like to know whether it's possible that Junior, who is about to lift his head slightly, would form a coalition if one of the Matimbas were to die with the remaining Matimba. It probably not. There's no real benefit for a young male lion or a coalition of young male lions to partner with an old lion towards the end of its tenure. And from the old male lion point of view, obviously there might be some benefit in having a younger male with him, but it is very unlikely. His default, especially because it's possible that he sired Junior, would be to chase him out of the area to protect any breeding rights with the females. And he wouldn't want to compete with a possibly related lion, younger related lion to him. And from a young male, there's very little benefit in joining up with a male who's probably not the most useful in a fight. It would be far better if Junior were to find some other young males to join up with of a similar age, probably within a year of him. They would probably still accept. Anything a bit older than that, those coalitions are quite well formed already, and it would be unlikely that they would accept a newcomer. So, chatting about Junior and who his daddy might be, Gene in North Carolina would like to know, who is Junior's father? Well, that is something we cannot answer with any sort of great authority. Gene, the thing is with lions, it's quite often that in certain studies that have happened recently, that over about 48% of lion cubs born to a pride are sired by not by the dominant males in the area of the coalition that sort of dominates over the pride. They are often sired by nomadic males who sort of sneak around the edges and will get in and quickly mate with the female and move out. And lions are able to have different fathers to different cubs in the same litter. So it is about a 50-50 chance that one of the Matimba males sired Junior, or it could have been a nomadic male moving through on the edge of the area. So we can never say for sure unless we had some genetic samples from every single nomadic male, and both the Matimbas were obviously much easier to collect, and then we could figure out who Junior's father is. So at the moment it's a 50-50 chance he's one of the Matimbas sons, or he could be a nomadic male that could have come in from Kruger or the Manuleti. We're just going to reposition quickly, see if we can get another view. Sometimes it can be quite difficult spending a lot of time with flat cats. They don't move too much. How's that, Andrew? Or would you like to go around the other side?
This is pretty good, eh?
Pretty good? Cool. So we have another new viewer. Welcome, Nicole from Israel. Really nice to have you on the Sunset Safari with us, Nicole. Nicole is looking for an update on the Styx cubs. They're quite far to the east of us at the moment. hiding from the Nkuhumas, I'm sure. We have seen the sticks quite regularly in this area, and I have been watching the Nkuhumas smell sort of stick scent marks, and they went way further west than I've ever seen them before, and then back. This is sort of far more than normal territory. But Nicole, why don't you let us know how you found out about Wild Earth and the live safaris? That we really would like to know. And you can send those answers to, as you know, I'm sure now, questions@WildEarth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. And Nicole's also said she's spreading the word as much as possible. Thank you very much, Nicole. We really appreciate that. So since we've seen quite a few failed hunts recently, we've had a question from Pamela, who's wondering whether if a lion got injured during the hunt, would the others bring it food? Unfortunately not. The lions would basically, if that injured one would move around, it would try to keep up with the pride and might get lucky enough if they catch something large to get there afterwards and get a chance to feed, but they wouldn't actively look after an injured animal. They might wait a little bit, but generally not too much. So Bren in Florida has noticed after hunts, a couple of failed hunts, they seem to groom their front paws, and she would like to know, is that to remove devil thorn injuries? And Bren, you must have been watching a while ago when we found that large devil thorn, and I still actually have a seed with me. I have managed not to lose this one. So what Bren is talking about is this. This is a large devil thorn seed, and it's actually designed, so imagine you're a cloven hoofed antelope and you're walking through the bush. It's actually designed to get between and stick between the hooves like that and stick in, and that's how they disperse their seeds across the African bush. It's very unlikely. I'm sure the lions do stand on them from time to time. I think that grooming of the paws is they will be trying to remove possibly grass and other thorns, but unlikely to be devil thorns. But they also do spend a lot of time grooming their paws and their faces and various other things. The only thing I've really seen these devil thorns really get stuck in and cause quite a lot of pain to is things like, whoopsie, oh no, that's dangerous. Careful, I'll put it on your seat, Artvark. Is things like wildebeest and impala and nyala, and I've actually seen one that it's got really stuck inside and actually didn't disperse and actually caused an infection in a wildebeest's foot. So the seeds still got dispersed, but it is quite a sort of unique way of dispersing your seeds, but can be quite painful for some of the animals. Let me see where that devil thorn went quickly. Here we go. So we're going to try one last different angle on these lions before I think it'll be quite safe to leave them for a bit. Maybe head towards Buffalo's Hook Dam, see what's happening there, and meander around and come back a little later. Hello ladies. One of the sub-adults got up and moved. We're coming to look at you. The others are very much still very flat cats. So we've been chatting quite a bit about Junior, and obviously he's getting to that stage where he is going to get pushed out of the pride and dispersed by the Matimba males, the dominant coalition in this area at the moment. And Robin in Maryland would like to know, do young males always join up with other young males? And if not, do they have a good chance of survival by themselves? Robin, I would say it's definitely not always, but there is quite a high percentage of that in this area in particular. This part of the Sabi Sands is very, very good for and very well known for large male lion coalitions. As far as I know, the Matimbas originally were 6 individuals. We had the very famous Mapocho, the Majingalans, Sand River males 4. So this whole area has got known for large lion coalitions. And hopefully for Junior's future, he does manage to find some other young males of a similar age to join up with. Because in this area, single male lions are not the most common thing. And it's not to say it's impossible for him to survive and eventually claim a pride, but it would be very, very difficult as being a single male lion in an area of coalitions. You're likely to have far less of a chance of getting control of a pride. So for a single male lion like Junior, he might have to move quite far from his natal pride and his natal home range to find an area, and he would probably have to move into sort of an area if he doesn't find other young males to join up with. I'm saying we're just speculating here. He would probably have to move quite far and move to an area that isn't as good as this area. So there's a lot of game here. It's a sort of really great area for lions, but being a single male lion, if he wanted to take control of a pride, he might have to move off to the peripheries, to the sort of substandard areas where the lion prides wouldn't be so big, or the lion numbers wouldn't be so big, maybe on the quartzite soils, rocky, stony areas. Prides would be much smaller, and that would be his best chance, because there he would likely find a single male lion that he could challenge. But in this general vicinity, it would be very, very tough for a single male lion to ever just grab a territory, and even if he does manage to grab a territory, it would be near impossible for him to maintain it. So we've got another sort of lion coalition cub question from football expert, and you would like to know which is the most successful coalition in terms of siring cubs since the time of the Mapokos. In my time in the Sabi Sands, Mapokos were by far the most successful, but I say probably since then it would probably be the Majingalans, who are still operational sort of to the south and to the west of us. They're probably the father of the majority of cubs, but in that area. In this area, as far as I know, the Matimbas. What are you doing? The Matimbas have been around for quite some time now, and they've sired the majority of the cubs in this area. Absolute panic with one lion jumping up. Maybe they heard something we didn't as well. I just think they were so fast asleep. So when you see lions, they'll often get up and move a little bit while they've been sleeping. And what happens is the area where they've been sleeping will get quite hot. So they will jump up and move to a cooler patch of sand. So yeah, it's going to be on the radio for a little bit, so I'll be back with you in a second. Afternoon, one station with Nkuhumas. They've moved a little bit from this morning, but if you come down Mamba Road, you will find a Gore branch, and then just cut sort of south or west from there, probably 70-80 meters from Mamba Road. Just past that big dead knobthorn if you're heading east. Copy. So one of our regular questionnaires, John from California, would like an update on the Birmingham Boys. For those of you who don't know who the Birmingham Boys are, it's a coalition of 5 male lions. They're quite young, probably a year and a half or so older than old Junior there. And they are starting to push into this area and could give the Matimbas some problems in the next year or so. John would like to know what's the update on them and what's on the update of the whereabouts of the Matimbas. So as far as I know, the Birmingham Boys were seen this morning, probably about 5.5 kilometers to the north of us, and they were around the Buffelshoek Manuleti boundary, and I'm not sure what the movements are. I hear someone's on their way out to go check, so if I hear anything during the drive, I will let you know. And the Matimbas are to the south of us. They've crossed south out of the northern Sabi Sands, and they're actually in the northern part of the central Sabi Sands at the moment, is the last update I heard on the Matimbas. Look at that female on the front there. She's testing the wind. It looks like she might have smelt something. And we saw them do this a few times yesterday. So going back over the last couple of days, we've watched a few unsuccessful hunts by these guys. And yesterday, we could actually hear them walking through the dry leaves. And Dennis in Massachusetts would like to know, is that a negative on their hunting? Yes and no, Dennis, but when they are hunting, they are moving quite a lot slower when they're just walking. So it could possibly affect them. And that only really happens in the areas underneath sort of there's deciduous trees that have dropped all their leaves. They would still be able to move quite quietly through the grass like where they are at the moment. Well, we've got 2 heads now, testing the wind. Maybe they smelled a buffalo. So, Peter from Switzerland, welcome on the Sunset Safari, Peter. Peter is just quite interested. We're talking about distances and that, in how large a lion home range is. And Peter, that completely depends on the area. So in areas where you've got high dominance of food, their territories can be quite a bit smaller, say for the Masai Mara, for example. And in this area, the female prides have a territory of probably around 5,000 or 6,000 hectares, so 50, 60 square kilometers, and the males can often be double that. And a male coalition, and let's take the Matimbas, for example, because we see them regularly, they are dominant over the Nkuhumas, the Sticks, and Talamatis, and I think maybe one other pride. So they're dominant over 4 different prides of females that we only see really 2 regularly. So they roam a massive area. And also, the bigger the coalition, the bigger the area they controlled. The old Mapokos controlled the majority of the 60,000 hectares of Sabi Sands, which is incredibly massive. So it just depends on the individual coalitions or pride sizes. And obviously, the bigger the pride gets, the more space it needs, the more food it needs. So it'll push out smaller prides. And the pride boundaries are quite sort of porous. They're not set in stone. And if a pride, oh, she's up and moving. I think she's going to go flop down with the rest. Good stretch. So what happens is that this area at the moment that the Sticks have been spending quite a lot of time in, the Nkuhumas are in now, is sort of right on the edge of the 2 prides. So they are quite porous, and these sort of in-between areas are used by both sets. I'm just going to try and move. Looks like they might actually get moving a little bit early. Those 2 big ladies are up, or they could just be searching for another spot of shade. And so quite often lions display what's called contagious behavior. So one will urinate or scent mark or start grooming, and it quite often spurs the rest of the pride onto grooming, and a lot of these are precursors to movement. And there we go, there's a nice big yawn coming. Oh. Just testing the wind again. She might just go flop down over there, but this is looking a little bit more promising for a bit of movement. Oh no, she's just going to flop down a little bit further away. So while we keep a close eye on these lions, we're going to cross to Scotty, who's been roaming far and wide in search of animals, and we're going to sit tight here for a little longer. We'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Hey, because I mean, if you guys locate up, so I'm in no rush. Cool.
No problem. Live.
Welcome back, everyone, and good to have you back with us. So I was just chatting with Cedric, one of the Arethusa guides, who's kindly allowed us some very useful information from this morning's drive. Brent nor myself were on Arethusa this morning, and because of that, we weren't sure of what was going on here. But as I've come onto Arethusa this afternoon and got onto their radio waves, I'm told that Tingana was left in this area just in front of us sometime this morning. It's quite thick, and a lot of time has passed since then, so it could well have moved off, but we've got to come and check in the last place. Now, for those of you who may be joining for the first time, Tingana is a large, dominant male leopard who, interestingly enough, is also going through quite a lot of territorial change. I know Brent's been talking about how the lion dynamics have been changing and how certain coalitions and prides are moving. It's the same with the leopards, interestingly, and Tingana, who is dominant on Arethusa and into Djuma, is pushing deeper and deeper into Djuma because he's getting pressure from the Anderson male to the south and west of Arethusa. So there's also change in leopard dynamics. But this is the heart of Tingana's territory that we're in now. And with a bit of luck, we may find him. Gilly in Milwaukee has asked a question regarding both the lion that Brent's been talking about and the leopard that I've just been chatting about. And she says she's noticed that it's very seldom that we ever see both predators in the same sighting. Excuse me, and is that because the leopard will avoid the lion? And she says it's because she's aware that leopard are potentially more clever than or intelligent than lion. Now, I'm not sure that's entirely the case. I think they're both almost equally intelligent. Leopard are just very shy and secretive by nature and will naturally avoid any potential conflict with lion because it will result in their death if they get caught by them, provided they don't get up a tree, of course, but it is risky business. The fact that we don't see them together doesn't mean that leopard don't lurk dangerously close to lion. I've seen on many occasions young male leopards and fully grown male leopards lurking near lion kills, and when the lion have all disappeared into the shade, the leopard can sneak in and steal some of their meal. So it's not that they don't get close to lion, and it's just that we haven't been in the right place at the right time to show it to you on many occasions. But on one occasion we did have the Styx lioness chase both Mvula and Kwatile, a female leopard who were mating, up a tree. So we have seen it once, but not as much as we would have liked to. I'm just going to hop out the vehicle and poke my head over this little cliff to make sure Tingana is not sleeping just below us here. Not that I can see, but I can hear a bird alarm calling up ahead there, not very intensely, but if a leopard's been lying under a bush for quite some time, the bird may continue to alarm, but at less of a high-pitched frequency or intensity. So we'll just drive a little bit further along here and have another look. There's quite a few little tributaries that run into a small waterhole behind us. And then these tributaries will be perfect shady places for Tingana to sleep during the heat of the day. Not that it's been extremely hot today, but it still offers a place of refuge for him. So many good hiding places in here. Oh look, an owl's just flown out. It's going to be difficult for Vian to show you, but I couldn't resist blurting that out. Sadly, some things are just too difficult for us to show you, but there was an owl of some sort. I'm not sure what type it was. It could have been a grass owl, judging by the way it flew and the shape of its body. Cedric and his tracker are off on foot here. And it sounds like they are calling us. So they could have got lucky and found him. Let's shoot on over there, so I'm just going to have to concentrate for a second. see what they have to say here. Okay, well, they weren't actually calling us, they're just letting us know that they are following his tracks. So rather than us following right behind him and muffling their approach and just creating a little bit too much noise for people to be on foot whilst tracking a leopard, we are going to hang back and let them have all the fun, and we'll probably head off somewhere else. Sadly, tracking is one thing that we are not really able to do properly, but it's no problem because we can still find enough animals the way we are kind of haphazardly doing it from the vehicle. But in order to be able to track properly, we'll rather leave them in this area in peace and quiet, which you need, and time, and we'll go and look somewhere else, and hopefully they'll give us a radio call when they get lucky. So it's important to explain a little bit further about tracking and how exactly it happens. Basically, everyone else that drives around you, other than us really, have got trackers on the hood of their vehicle. So there's a special seat right up front that allows people to, or the trackers, to have a very close view of the road, and that's the initial place where you will spot tracks. The tracker will then assess how fresh the tracks are, and then often go off and walk and follow the tracks. It's the best way to try and find animals, and some of the best trackers in the world come from South Africa, and specifically this area, because they've had a lot of practice, and it's also quite a tough area to track in, so it's a good area to practice and hone this art of tracking. So that's what Cedric and his tracker were doing now. The guides will often actually join the trackers initially for the first 10 or so minutes and maybe leave their guests abandoned on the vehicles, because if you work as a team you can cover more ground and work more effectively, but understandably you don't want to leave the guests for too long on the vehicle alone. Just going to stop here. There's some go away birds calling, and it's such a wonderful call to hear. Take a listen. Sorry, I stopped on a very awkward angle here for Vim. While we listen to these go-away birds having some kind of a debate, I don't think they can see any threat, but possibly they can. It sounds like there's just a whole lot of them chatting. Judy would like to know if we've got any updates on Shadow and Sindile, a female leopard and a 12-month-old cub. They were seen this morning together, but she left them not too far from here, so that's where we're going to head to now and take a little bit of a drive through that area. But she left him to go hunting again, so she's also somewhere in this general area, and it'll be great to bump into either one of them. So that's all I've got for you though, Judy. I don't know when last they had a kill or what they've been up to, but they were seen together this morning, and it wasn't too far from here. Who knows, possibly all three of them met up last night, Tingana, Shadow and Sindile, because they are very, very close to one another. Or at least they were this morning.
And there was quite a bit of movement. I was quite hopeful that they were going to get moving. What I am going to do is I'm just going to wait for the next game drive vehicle to arrive. So if they do move while we're not here, we don't have to struggle to find them again. Isn't that quite nice seeing the two adult lionesses next to us here, lying back to back? So they have moved out of that shady spot into the sun. There was a bit of stretching going on, so I got a little bit excited that they might make a move. The area we're in now on Djuma is probably one of the largest areas with no roads in it, and it's this myriad of drainage lines. Those of you who are on the Sunrise Safari will have seen what a challenge it was to move through this area. And it has been, for me, a very successful area in terms of tracking and finding animals. Spent wonderful time with both Quarantine, Nkuhuma in this area. For those of you who might be new, those are two young male leopards who we used to see quite regularly before they dispersed. We might still get a visual of them occasionally, but last I heard, they are quite far south to us. But what else have we seen in this area? I've tracked the lions in this area a couple of times, and not only the Nkuhuma pride, but also the Styx pride, and great elephant herds in this block. Actually really great sighting where Jean and I actually broke down in amongst an elephant herd, which was always quite fun. And so I really like this block, and to walk in this block is absolutely fantastic. There's some incredibly beautiful tambueti and jackalberry trees in these small drainage lines. Lots of buffalo bulls in this block, and I think that's what the lions were looking for in this block earlier today. And hopefully they might find them a little later. So, obviously, quite a lot of conversation is around Junior, when he's going to get the boot out of the pride, and when he's going to move on, and what's going to happen to him. And Sarah, who's 17 from Ohio, would like to know if Junior got into a fight with other male lions, would his father's help? Probably not. If those male lions happen to be within their territory, they would chase the male lions, but not to help Junior males out of the territory, and they would probably then chase Junior as well. So they wouldn't come into the fight to help, they would come in the fight to remove potential mating threats from their home range, and then they would remove the next mate as Junior. So unfortunately, the next stage of Junior's life is probably going to be quite a tough one. Well, it seems Ohio is out in force on this sunset safari. This time it's Deb. Deb would like to know how Junior will be removed from the pride. Will it be a bit of sort of hide and seek, try leave him behind, or will there be quite a lot of aggression involved? Deb, the aggression will be a very aggressive process, and it will be spearheaded by the male lions, and they will dominate and try chase him and bite him and fight him till he moves on. Quite often in these circumstances, the females might show him a little bit of aggression when he starts trying to mate with them, which he has already, but they probably wouldn't chase him out. And also, even at this young age, he's already bigger and stronger than them, so they would put the risk of him becoming aggressive back towards him. It would be one of those two dominant Matimbas, or both those dominant Matimbas, who put a lot of pressure onto him. They would fight him, bite him, chase him, and try chase him out of the area, so it would be an aggressive process. Quite often what happens, though, is we'll see the lions lying like they are now, Junior fast asleep, and you'll suddenly hear something or smell something, and before the males even get here, he would realize, and Junior will be hightailing it at high speed away from the area, but he then might try rejoin with the pride once the Matimba males had left. But I think he's getting a little bit old for that now, and it's just a matter of time before he is forced completely out of this area. But while he can, he will try hang around with the pride. Obviously, it's this many lions, far greater chance of food, and being bigger, he can dominate the carcasses and get more food than the others. So he is probably quite an annoyance to the females at the moment just because of the amount he eats, but he will be pushed out by the males normally, not the females. So we have another new viewer today, and that's really exciting. Welcome to the Wild Earth crew, Daniel. And Daniel is wondering whether we have any white lions on the reserve. We don't, Daniel, but to the north of us, in the Timbavati Reserve, there's a couple of white lions, and then about 60 kilometers to the east of us, along the Lebombo mountain range in the Kruger Park, I know of 2 white lions. And it's quite an interesting thing. They actually think those white lions that are way off on the Mozambique boundary of the Kruger came with a coalition. The gene came with a coalition of males, young males, about 5 or 6 of them that left the Timbavati and then eventually pushed through 60, 70 kilometers to where they established territory around the basalt plains of Satara. So very interesting, but no white lions in the Sabi Sands. But that doesn't mean we couldn't possibly have a white cub here. The Timbavati males have been known to disperse into this area, so they could bring that white knight gene with them. What the gene is, it's a recessive gene, so it's not albinism or anything like that. It's sort of a leucistic color variation. Leucism is almost a lack of pigment in the hair follicles, not in the skin, so the skin will be still dark, whereas an albino it would be pink. So there is a possibility always that we could get a white cub, depending on where the males or new males that are coming in come from. So unfortunately not at the moment, but who knows what the future might hold. So, moving away from Junior and to the girls. Mark from Massachusetts would like to know, any of the lionesses pregnant in this pride at the moment? Not that I can see, Mark. If they are, it's very early stages. I did hear a report that one of them was mating with an Nkuhuma male lion a while ago. I'm sorry, not an Nkuhuma, a Matimba male lion a while ago. But I can't see any signs of pregnancy just yet. So fingers crossed, though. It'd be lovely to have some cubs in the Nkuhuma pride. And sorry, I just heard something. I'll be back with you in a second. And Rosie, sorry, back to the girls again. It was actually a battalier calling in the distance. I'll try to keep a lookout if he flies over. And basically, Rosie B would like to know which is the oldest lioness. I would say it is one of these two closest to us here, the one on the right or the one on the far left. So those two look a little bit older than the others. And they are, as far as I know, about 9 or 10 years old. And then the two oldest in the pride, and the younger ones are said to be about 5 or around 5 or 6 years old. And that's with the adults. Then we've got the two sub-adults who are around a year and a half, pushing through towards closer to 2 years. And then old Junior is probably between 3 and 3.5 years old now. It's amazing how quiet the bush is at the moment. And you can hear a couple of birds around. It's a light breeze. I'm hoping these lions are going to get mobile quite soon. But in the meantime, we're going to cross back across to Scotty, who's still meandering the wilds of Arathusa Game Reserve. And we'll be right here waiting with the lions, hoping something happens. So we'll see you a little later in the drive.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back on board with VM and myself. We are currently on the Arathusa Djuma boundary. Arathusa on the left, Djuma on the right, and we have got some fresh tracks over here on our right hand side. I never seem to get this right. Of Tingana. They've already been circled, and Cedric found them, who was also in that area earlier, who was on foot, and those are Tingana's tracks crossing straight into Djuma. So what we're going to do is take a road which will take us back into Djuma and in the kind of general direction of these tracks. Ideally we would carry on following them on foot, but that's not an option. So we'll stay in the vehicle and encompass this block that he's headed into. It's quite a large block, which doesn't suit us. It would be better if it was one with a few more roads through it, but there still is a chance he could pop out anywhere. So good prospects. We're not sure what time of day he would have crossed. He was last seen this morning at around probably 9:30, so about 6 hours ago. And even though it's daylight hours, leopards can move during the day and will move during the day, and depending on many variables, they could move a very, very long distance during the day. Especially with all the territorial disputes that's been going on between Tingana, the Anderson male, and Mvula. So he could be trying to possibly, he's caught wind of another leopard that he may want to chase off. We've been talking a lot about predators today, lion and leopard, and I'm sure Brent's told you about the unsuccessful Nkuhuma pride in terms of their hunting when we're around. And football expert would like to know, what is the most successful predator out here in the Sabi Sands? And it's in all likelihood the wild dog. The African wild dog has a 70 to 80% strike rate. It will depend on the pack and the area that they move in, but they're probably the most successful large predator in this area. Sadly, there are two packs that are kind of nearby to us, but they are both denning at the moment, and we haven't seen them for probably over a month and a half now. But as soon as they've raised those cubs a few more months, they will leave their den and start being a far more mobile unit coming through our property. And in November last year, Hayden and Peter got to actually witness the successful hunting, and they took down an impala at Buffalo's Hook Waterhole. So they are probably the most successful. The others all have probably a 10 to 20% strike rates. But again, it will depend obviously on the individual and the area that it's in and the time of the year. As we drive along here, we need to check carefully for his tracks, this male leopard that we're looking for. But I fear we may only find him further up ahead, because the general direction that they were heading in would probably not have brought him to this road. Unless, of course, he caught wind of this very large herd of impala on our left. So we're just going to stop and enjoy a view of them. It is very thick. Hopefully we'll be able to get a glimpse of one or two of them. And if he did catch one of them, there is a strong chance he may alter his course and try and pursue them. I haven't watched Tingana hunting much. The majority of hunting I've seen him do has been stationary hunting, waiting on the side of termite mounds, waiting for either warthogs or aardvarks to emerge. Kathy, sounds like you may be another one of our new viewers, and it's good to have you with us. Kathy's interested to know if there's any chance that we could see an ostrich here in the Sabi Sands, and sadly it is a very, very small chance. Both myself and Brent have only seen a giraffe once in many years of being here, and it was probably the same giraffe that both of us saw. We were working at camps next to one another. It was a female, sorry, not giraffe, ostrich, and that's not to say that they don't occur in the Kruger National Park, and actually very close to us. Today, in between drives, Brent and myself and Nikki and Tara headed into Buffalo's Hook. We were invited for a drive around that property, which is our northern boundary, and we haven't spent any time driving around there yet. We always hear on the radio animals being found at various locations. And driving around Buffalo's Hook, we actually did see a big male giraffe. Sorry, ostrich, I keep getting confused with a tall animal and a tall bird. But yes, there is a very vague chance of seeing one here, but they prefer open plains and more open vegetation. This is all a bit thick for them. Well, you're about to see a very, very interesting sight, and that is that of Stefan and Jean-Dre. They are busy trying to get the mobile walking rig set up and back in action. We have used it before, and this is going to allow us to broadcast on foot safaris. So something that we look forward to, but it's going to require a little bit of fine-tuning. Steph, how's it going?
Fine, thank you, and you?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Hello everybody, it's wonderful to see you all again, I must be honest. It's we're just getting all the niggles out of the system.
Good.
You know, it's been a few weeks since we were doing walks, and so there's a few gremlins that have crept into the system. But
okay, good. Well, good luck, and when you do get it working, there's tracks of Tingana male leopard.
yeah, we've got them, yeah.
I don't know if they're the same as these. They could be. I'm not sure how many vehicles would have driven this road today, because when I found them here earlier this afternoon, they'd been driven over.
Okay.
But the tracks over there are from between drives.
Alright.
So
These are relatively fresh, they've just been blown by the wind.
Okay.
And there's tracks of a small leopard going into the block right here as well. So
okay, cool.
So good leopard around. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Good luck with the gremlins. See you later.
Bye bye.
Not necessarily every day for the time being, but at least it is going to be a little treat for every now and then.
That's what we saw.
Yeah, those are the same ones from earlier, yeah. Marga in the Netherlands says she watches the Djuma waterhole cam, the Idube waterhole cam, and she often hears a leopard rasping and vocalizing there, and she's wondering if it could be involved in all of this leopard dispute that's going on between the different territories. And yes, I guess they're all kind of indirectly connected, because there's knock-on effects from one male leopard through different territories, but it's quite a way off from here, and I'm fairly certain there will be another male between the male that you're hearing at Idube and the Anderson male, because it's quite a way off from here. But who knows, Anderson male could possibly stretch that far south in the Sabi Sands, but difficult to say. Good to hear that you are getting some good leopard audio though from that waterhole cam. Our trusty mechanic who helped fix our car today. Hello, Opa, the car's wonderful, thank you. We sheared off one of the plates that holds a shock absorber in place, a massive spring this morning, and Opa, who's the on-site mechanic, did an incredible job to fix it in very short time. So we are thankfully back up and on the road due to his handy bush mechanics, and you do have to be resourceful out here. It's not like you can just pop into a hardware or a spares shop and get whatever you need. He basically custom built and welded the whole part from scratch. So fortunate to have him around. It looks like he was test driving another vehicle that he must be working on.